Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming today on Friday evening for some of you, or Friday afternoon for other members. And it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers. We have 4 presenters today. And our first presenter is Raquel Green, who is an associate professor of Russian. She is also the department chair of Russian at Grinnell College. Our next presenter is Katya Ratushnyuk, who is a Russian teacher at Staten Island Technical High School. She is also regional chair of New York City Olympiad of Spoken Russian. Then we have John Rook, who is a Smith Middle School Russian language teacher. He is also the CTR secretary and the National Russian Essay Contest co-chair. And finally, today, the 4th presenter is Natalia Ushakova, who is a Russian teacher at Staten Island Technical High School, and she is a current ACTR president. So let's begin, and I'm passing the baton to my colleagues.
Again, good evening, everyone. My name is Katrina Ratushnyuk, and Olga presented me, and I will begin our webinar today. And we just wanted to say a few words about how we will handle the questions and answers in the beginning, so everyone would be comfortable with how that works. John?
Yes, so if everyone could just sort of hold their questions to the very end of all the presentations, that would be great. We would prefer that, the questions be verbal and not placed in the chat, just so that everyone can, just capture those questions. And keep in mind also that next week, since we'll have a continuation of this webinar, there'll be plenty of more time next week as well for questions and answers too. So thank you.
Okay. Again, it's nice to see everyone, considering the time, but considering our tradition as ACTR members of getting together on Friday afternoon, and talking about our life, about our professional life in a classroom, about how we teach. And today we would like to talk about project-based learning, which is, you would agree, is a big thing right now, partially due to the pandemic times that we all used to teach in a different way, and partially to the students that we are teaching right now. So we all want to adjust our instruction, adjust our teaching styles with what is the most appropriate and the most comfortable for our students in class. So project-based learning, of course, is one of those things. And there are so many things being said methodology-wise about project-based learning. It's been in the air for several years, and that might sound like, of course, it's another project, and then you assign the project and all students go, oh, again, we're going to do something. And then project-based learning actually becomes something different in class. Because we want to embrace so many things in it. So, and for instance, the Buck Institute, right here, you see the little chart of how actually the Pbll is different from simply assigned, traditionally assigned project in the classroom. So, and there are so many different steps and parts of Pbll that makes it so different. So for instance, Pbll actually is not one-day thing. It is definitely a long-term project or long-term activity. And sometimes it could be 1 week, sometimes it could be the whole month. And usually it embraces the unit. And in our language classroom, it is a unit either in the textbook or the curriculum unit that we are introducing to our language learners. And it is really a wonderful thing that it is always driven by student inquiry. So you can always adjust this project. You can always adjust this unit because sometimes we have different students and they might be interested in different vocabulary and different things. And actually, they all interested in different things, and making it individual sometimes, that's what makes it so important. And students are totally engaged in creating their own personal experience, and they can discover language for themselves, right? And of course, we want to align these activities and instruction in class with our academic standards, with ACTFL standards, the 21st century skills in a classroom. Everything should be taken into account for us as educators, of course. And that makes it, again, quite interesting and different to teach. So again, it does involve collaboration in class. That could be collaboration in between students or in between teacher and community. And so it's ongoing collaboration. And of course, it has a real world application, because why will we need a language? We need to be able to apply it in real life. So, and of course, as the result, the project needs to be presented publicly. So whatever our unit is, student needs to be able to be confident about talking about this or presenting their product, or you know, learning and assigning for himself learning to learn something that is applicable in real life, and being able, of course, to present it. So there's so many different projects that we can design. There's so many different units in our curriculum. And we actually wanted to start talking about this project, keeping in mind how our language learner develops. So we will start with middle school right now, okay? And then we will go into high school, and then we will talk about the college PBLs, okay? So I would like to invite my colleague, John Rook. So he will start with the middle school PBLs.
Okay, excellent. I'm just trying to share my presentation right now. All right, so let's see if I can do this properly. Okay, can everyone see my screen, right? Okay, excellent. So in about 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to be highlighting one project for my presentation today. Through backwards design, I'm going to show the various components, the building blocks that led up to the final summative assessments and products. I'm going to start by showing the project overview, then the projects, right? And then show the various scaffolding and formative activities that led up to the end products, including some work samples, all right? So the project that I'm highlighting today is a city center project, Nash Городской Центр. It's for grade 7, the levels novice mid to novice high. The essential question is, what can one find or do in a city, town, or center? The various elements of the project, city center layout and drawing. There's a video advertisement. There's an interview about the city center. They had to write about their city center. There's various scaffolding activities that that concern vocab and grammar. The initial input, well, city vocab. There's grammatical structures in practice. There's also collaborative sort of mini projects that are formative assessments that are presentational. There are some other tasks that are real life, contextualized. And then the time frame is about 3 to 4 weeks. So the can-do statements that are governing this project, I can name key places in a city or town, identify them, describe activities, I can make, that is ask and answer polite requests for information. And then I can name products or services in various places in a city or town. So this, this is kind of an example of some of the projects. I understand that they're sort of small, right? But they were placed on the board because the projects were done and we were doing voting, which I'll show you. So basically they had to design their own city center, starting with the ever so important, Plощad, right in the center. They had to name that and then create streets and include businesses, elements of nature, and whatnot. Okay. Here are some more of the projects right here. So this is the summative assessment. They got to name their own city, and be creative. So there's, a big creative element and choice there. Independence at the 7th grade level, there's some, but keep in mind that, there still needs to be quite a bit of guided, instruction and development with regard to projects and activities. Prior to finalizing the project, students had to peer review like another group's project. They worked in pairs. So they had to go through this checklist and make sure that, everything was contained there. And then if not, they needed to provide comments to the other group. So after the project were finalized, we did some voting to vote for the best project. I love to do little competitions. This is a great, sort of incentive for, my students in 7th and 8th grade, and then the winning group got a prize. And that could be either tickets, which could be used on, for a certain amount of points on some other assignments, or it could be some candy, God forbid, yes, candy. So they kind of like that. All right. So after completing the project, right, the next step, they had to do a video commercial. Their task as designers of your Russian city center, you and your partner need to advertise your city center to attract tourists and new residents. So they had to write a script and then they filmed it. These were the guidelines. Some activity variations could be a marketing brochure, because this is presentational language, or they could do a radio advertisement, without any sort of video, and that could be on Flipgrid. So I just want to show you a sample of that right now.
We cannot hear the audio. I think you need to click on share audio. If you click on share again.
Okay, hold on for 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. 1 second, please. Sorry about that.
So when you click on share and
Yeah.
you have all the windows in the very bottom, you need to click share sound.
Okay, so maybe that's up here.
No. When you click,
Share sound, there it is. I got it.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's just start that again.
Добро пожаловать в наш город Дарьяс. Наш город очень прекрасный и чистый. В нашем городе находится зеленая площадь. В центре на площади находится парк и подъезд. В нашем городе находится универмаг и книжный магазин, где можно покупать одежду и книги. В нашем городе тоже находится гастроном и кафе, где можно покупать кофе и.
Okay, so that's just a little sample, right? I'm not going to show the whole thing. Let's see. The next one was an interpersonal interview, with a member of another project. So as mayor of your city, you are guest appearing on a radio travel show and are being interviewed about your city center. Work with a partner to ask and answer the following questions. And then this could be videoed, it could be done on Flipgrid, or it could be also done in the language lab. We happen to do it in the language lab, okay? The next summative task was writing about your city center. So they had to write about it. And And, you know, again, introduce your city, explain why it's a great place, describe it, name the main square, mention several businesses. And then I just did a regular sort of, you know, kind of like essay sheet, you know, but in terms of project variations, you could do a newspaper article, or I've done this before as well. It could be a press release. And then here are some samples of my students. You can take a look at those later because I will share the presentation. And these are first drafts, so just keep that in mind. So they're not corrected, and I still need to do that and pass them back, and they need to do a second draft. Now, so kind of doing backwards design, I want to talk a little bit about how I, you know, built this up. So for key vocab, you know, it had to do with the center square, types of businesses, recreation, cultural places, businesses, products and purchases, some of the key structures and grammars, polite requests for information, asking about giving addresses, где находится, nominative plurals, addresses, Russian numbers, and then of course the prepositional case, and then the prepositions v and na. Now, to begin with the vocab, did was I passed out this sort of city center grid, and instead of giving them a kind of like vocab list, they watched 2 different videos, and they had to just down why they were watching the video, the city, right? So they were kind of doing like an initial draft, you know, for like a city center. So that was how I gave them the vocab input. They also learned nominative plurals and how to form that. And of course, you know, in my district and obviously everywhere else, you know, these, you know, grammar vocab practices have to be contextualized. So for this particular activity, they had to just basically show what can one find, you know, the types of products, you know, or things that one can find in these various, you know, cities. I'm sorry, in these various places. So I did collect this. It was sort of like a, you know, formative type assessment. And, you know, I did correct this and give it back to them. The next thing that we did as practice, we did map labeling. They looked at city centers, and then they practiced with partners in terms of speaking activities, also writing activities, inquiring about the places on the maps, you know, asking for directions, giving, asking for locations, providing the locations, and then also using, you know, such standard expressions like "Измените, пожалуйста, скажите, простите, не знаете." So, you know, and we did that a few times using different types of maps. Next, they had a couple of authentic texts as well, where they were learning about what is contained in a city center, like Kreml, or, you know, Muzey. And then also they read another text about Moskva, Krasnaya Ploshchad. So these were just obtained from textbooks, right? So, you know, pretty simple activities. And, you know, there were questions that they had to answer for these, and also comprehension questions that were answered in English. Another activity that my students really like, as kind of like a follow-up to the maps, they had to use an application called Pbll. This is something on their iPads. They had to go in there, create a couple of characters, and then, so this was something that was applied to our city where the school is located, Glastonbury Center. I gave them a few places, and then they could also look into, you know, other places in Glastonbury. And they had to create a little puppet show and then ask and answer. And I want to show you a little example of that.
Доброе утро, доброе утро. Здравствуйте. Вы не знаете, где находится торговый центр Сомерсет? Я знаю. На бульвар Гластонбери, дом 1, 4, no. Спасибо. Скажите, пожалуйста, где находится кафе Starbucks? Кафе Starbucks на проспект Хеброн, дом 7, no.
Okay, so that's Puppet Pals. And I use Puppet Pals for different tasks, you know, different structures and inputs. They really like that. Some other activities that I did to build knowledge about the city, places in the city, they completed various web quests. So like, for example, one thing that they did, they went grocery shopping. They were given a flyer from Pbll, right? And they were going to be, the task was going on a picnic, and they had to come up with, you know, a list, a spisek, right? They had to come up with a list of items that they needed to, you know, for their picnic. They also went to GUM, and they went shopping around GUM. They watched, you know, a couple of videos about GUM first, and then they had to determine, they had to take a look at the stores that were there, and they were able to choose which stores they wanted to shop at and what they would buy there. Another activity was going to a restaurant, Katyusha. So this is where they were able to, you know, they saw a menu from Katyusha, and then they selected items from various, you know, parts of the menu based on their preferences, their choices, and then they had to provide the prices. And then I also thought it was important that they do a conversion to sort of conceptualize how much this would cost. And then some other web or online activities. I've done museum visits at the Tretyakov, or also with theater visits at the Bolshoi Theater. Another little sort of mini project, a more formative assessment, was called My Storefront, right? Mon Magazine. So I provided them with this template. They had to come up with the name of, you know, the type of store. And this one was Dom Supermarket, but okay. And they had to show a couple of different advertisements, window advertisement, highlighting, you know, what is sold there, and you know, how much it costs, provide address, hours of operation, and whatnot. A follow-up activity to this, they had to talk about it on Flipgrid. So this was presentational, individual. They needed to name their store, describe it, where it's located, provide the phone and the website, when it operates, and then name the two things that, you know, one can buy in the store. And then one sort of last activity I did to also, you know, build and practice nominative plurals, and also, you know, just their idea with, you know, stores and products. They had to also come up, this was sort of like a sheet of labels, and the task was they had to come up with a type of store again, and then they were, you know, just putting products out on the shelves, and they needed to provide the labels, and you know, and obviously everything is in nominative plural, and they had to draw a picture as well of the item. So that actually is my entire presentation. So I'm doing another project in 8th grade, which has to do with like reporting, but I really don't have time to highlight that today. So, and I look forward to your questions if you have them at the very end. Thank you. I will post the project also. I'm sorry, my slides in the, a link to the slides in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, we will share all presentations and resources, so you could on your own explore more about it. So I will then continue with high school. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about two projects, one for non-heritage language classroom and another one for heritage speakers. So, so again, what is Pbll? And I kind of want to tell you about what I'm doing differently when I learned about it. So what I think my glows and grows might be at this point. So it's definitely a new way of teaching and learning. So when you embrace the whole unit, when you talk more with kids, when you do a lot of brainstorming, when you make them think to come up with ideas and being responsible for what they learn. So I think it's a really, really cool outcome of Pbll. Like, so students could take ownership of what they want to learn and how they learn. So they do create the context again, right? So they acquire different skills, and we as teachers always guide them, facilitate to like which skills would be appropriate here, like what skills would be useful for you in college and so on. Like we in high school, and in New York City in general right now, like Pbll introduction in your curriculum is a must, I would say, right after when you resumed in person in school. And that's been going on as a huge leitmotif for all the subjects in our school. So it does involve constant student engagement and outside the box thinking. So I kind of shortened all my rubrics on this, because once the unit starts, during brainstorm, we go over with the students and we update it constantly. So they come up with ideas like, let's include this and this, which can do statement my work in this unit better and so on. So again, no perfect design formula or whatever you can find on internet. You can design your own and make your own Pbll. Okay, and of course you want to think about the language input at all times. Okay, so my first project Pbll I'm going to talk about is called like talk show, and we have it in my non-heritage speakers class, which are advanced Russian 3 class, second year of learning the language. So it's like novice mid performance, novice high targeting, and can do statements that we are working on. Rubrics are different at this point depending on the activities that we are exploring every week. So interpretive reading, interpersonal speaking are them mostly used in this Pbll. The unit is likes, dislikes, very common, and timing for this project is approximately 3 weeks. So how that goes. We have this unit in our Troika textbook that called Do You Like Classical Music? So altogether, when you ask kids in class, do you like classical music? Most of them would say, what? So you ask them, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to like? What do you dislike? So we have this brainstorm. So we set the goals, what they're going to talk about. So this year we were setting our mind talking about music, art, literature, and sport. So the first kind of activity step was exploring these all 4 categories. They were working in the groups, they were working individually, they were sharing what they came up with. They were filling in some of these graphic organizers. You can see some of the examples on the slide. So then after they kind of spent some time, and they were again following the language control options, like I like this, I like that, accusative, okay, of course, but that's all disguised and integrated into Pbll, so they would not get bored with all grammar concepts. And then they were writing blogs about the famous people. And of course, the biggest thing I would say, it's just giving them options, opportunities, choices, so they could learn about someone they really, really like. If they like Shishkin, like on the bottom, yes. But if they like Nyusha, yes, пожалуйста. So they really appreciated that. And even some of the students, they just, what if I have a Russian friend and I want to talk about American athletes or American rock music? Like, okay, go ahead. And they used this opportunity, and they were very successful in talking about those in Russian. So the talk show then, talk show is a culminating project, and they picked up Пусть говорят с Андреем Малаховым. So they were trying to become ready to participate in the talk show. So that was supposed to be like interpersonal speaking. Of course, students, as they were getting ready, they were becoming experts в искусстве, в литературе, в музыке. So, and one person would be the host. So 5 students would participate in the talk show at once, and everyone, the audience, was completing the graphic organizer and trying to write down useful words and expressions that they heard. So as the talk show starts, the host, Andrei Malachov, would welcome everyone. And before that, students were randomly assigned the roles. So they actually did not know who they are going to be, whether expert in sport or music. So they would have to come up with a personality for that and just represent, let's say, я Александр Сергеевич Пушкин, I'm an expert in literature today, да? И они друг другу задают вопросы. So they start with a simple question, what's your name, what's your expertise in, and do you like this, do you like that? So that came out really, really interesting as the show. So I just don't want to show you a video just to take your time. That was a lot of fun. So students we had like, since we have like more than 30 students, so we at least had like 5 shows. And the students even wrote those like, like signboards. Аплодисменты, пожалуйста, прямой эфир. So everyone was so very much engaged and they really, really loved it. So these are just examples of can-do statements that we were talking with the students about. And this is it. So that took us like 3 weeks. And of course, at the end of the Pbll, you want to make sure that they would give it a thought. So we definitely have either individual conferences with the students, like 5-minute conferences, what you've learned, what's your favorite expressions, and what do you think worked well? Or we have a Google form reflection, okay? And then they write in English a paragraph, like, what do you think would work well, how we can improve this unit and so on. What do you think would be interesting to implement in the future? And I learned myself, I found it so very helpful so I can implement their ideas in the years to come. Okay, so the next Pbll project is for a heritage class, and it's called The City of My Family. So that's the unit in Troika, the city. But since we start with this unit in new semester, and that's the new semester for the heritage speakers, because they are so that's literally their first days in a heritage or advanced class, let's say. So they get to know each other, and I found it very, very successful to talk about the most important thing for us, again, in line with following the curriculum, the city. So we talk more about the city and my community and background of my family. So it's actually going on for a month. So the structure, again, we get together, we get to know each other, we worked on the can-do statements and rubric, and mostly important, what are you going to learn from this? So I certainly don't want you guys to show me what you can do, but we all, since this is a very interesting class, and we have more than like 5 different levels of language proficiency. So I keep telling them your individual progress in language, that's what matters during the semester. So they actually outline different goals for themselves, and that actually worked very well because they have different levels of language proficiency. But let's go on. So first they agreed. I mean, it was a couple of years ago, so students agreed, oh, interview would be a good thing, you know, to find out about the city of my family. And we worked as a group, the small groups that we shared. So we came up with a list of possible questions that we can ask the members of our family, or дедушки, бабушки, родители, or even students call really like Russia to Ukraine to ask, you know, their relatives who actually are there. That's very interesting. So they have to record the video or audio of the interview, and then they act as journalists because they have to encode their interviews, they have to listen, they have to write down and produce like the presentational writing piece, actually, that they would submit then together with the audio or video. And again, with peer assessment at some point, that helps very well. So they share their writing journalist work, blogs, and that helps them to create the final kind of part of the project, their presentation. So they, of course, create slides, and they do either video or in-class presentations to show their presentational speaking. So within the approximately 5 minutes, they would give presentation to like city ambassadors about the city of their family. And here they come very creative. They bring authentic materials. They dress up as, you know, they're like exploring the traditional clothing, or maybe authentic materials like souvenirs. So that's always a great hit, and makes a great engagement in a classroom. At the same time, when the presentation goes, the rest of the class are working on their graphic organizers because they want to put down interesting, again, expressions or facts about the cities that they are learning about. And at the end of the Pbll, again, we have an individual meetings with the students, what they've learned, and I ask them a couple of questions. And that's also like an interpersonal speaking part within the Pbll and unit. And these are, and usually it's like the cities are so different, and students are so diverse in their presentations, and creative ways to learn about their traditions, family tradition. That's amazing. So this is it, and I look at the time, and I would pass the time to turn to my colleague Natalia Ushakova.
Спасибо большое. I will, please let me know if you see my screen well. Yes, full screen?
Yes.
Thank you. I will present one project. This project usually happened in the beginning of the third year with a college class. This class is, they completed textbook Troika for the first and the second year. And third year, they are in the college program getting credits from the University at Albany. And at the end of the year, they are taking a annual exam. What I'm observing every year when students completed textbooks, they're coming to this class, which based on the proficiency skills. And we are working with some grammar concept, definitely. But the first thing they're telling me at the beginning in September, could we please review grammar? And I decided to refer it to the joke. You all know about this, when the young teacher said, я уже сам все понял, а они все еще не понимают. And this is, I thought, let me apply this joke to the real situation. And I tell students that they will be teachers of grammar. And what you see on my screen, it's not beautiful pictures that I created. This is a first page of the presentations that they're working. Those green boxes, they just covering the names of the students. And my biggest I can learn and I can teach. Project is the Russian language structure, how to work on the project. You choose a partner and a topic, and then you create PowerPoint presentation. where you include main function and grammar rules. I suggested them to use Troika, but they also open to use any other materials. 7 slides, 7 concepts, 7 minutes present, and 14 examples in the class exercises. Each group member should work on a slide and collaborate on examples. Reference materials for the classmates. What they're doing, they are creating a full lesson on particular topic. They're creating presentations, they're creating worksheets, they are running, they're presenting, they're running the class, they're asking, they become teachers really. And the main points for me: choose, create, present, share, check, and reflection. Through my presentation, we will go through all steps from my side and from students' steps. The first I choose every year, I'm using the same list of the grammatical concepts, and I'm giving students a choice what they would like to do. Everything going on in class in the first day when I'm assigned the project, they decide what they would like to do. They kind of negotiate with each other. The same group would like to do the similar projects, and then later I create the schedule for them. They know exactly when they will present. What happened? The next step, they work on the presentation. I assumed that it will be 2, 3, or 4 projects in the same day, but it's actually never happened this way. From my experience for all of those years, they are working, it's a 2 presentation a day in a lesson. We have 41 minutes classes. What I would like to say that specifically that a lot of things students decided on their own. We have a discussion when we're deciding materials, what you would like to know, what did you learn from your previous years in terms of grammar, what you would like to review. And we actually, it's not, I have very, as you noticed, very like dry list of the thing, like just the steps, and a lot of discussions going on. They're taking notes during this discussion. I would like them to feel like they are in college when they need to take care about the work they're supposed to do. Here, this next step, they submitted in a Google Classroom all the presentations, and some of them done it late. I just covered the names of the students, and for some particular day. Usually it's 2 weeks to create this, 2 or 3 weeks, depends of the, it was hard this year since a lot of kids were sick in December and the beginning of the January after the break, and it was a lot of variation with the schedule. After they work submitted, I would just show you one presentation just to go slide by slide for you to see. It's actually this presentation in the left corner, just to see what kind of work they do. And I wouldn't be saying it's the best one, but it's one of the really good ones. I cover the names here. And as soon as presentation presented, it takes more than 14 to 7 minutes. It usually takes 10, 12 minutes for them. And here it's other examples of the just fun stuff that they included in their presentation. Here's how presentation is going. I'm in the back of the room, and they showing, talking, and yes, it's it's in English explanation, but I strongly believe that students feel a better understand each other. I will stop sharing for a second, and if I would be able just to show it to you, one of the classes, students, hold on a second. If I would be able, it worked before, but I'm not sure. Please tell me if you see it.
Yes.
Oh. Mhm. I will be back with my presentation. Here was a moment of presenting. What impressed me, how they, did you see it in a full screen? Good. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really a serious, serious. They were serious because it's a grade, definitely, and it's a lot of points for them to work on. But on another note, I really impressed how the classmates seriously listening, answering questions, and responding to this work. Next slide is, okay, I'm not sure that you see the, give me 1 second, I will get back to the work. I apologize, will be in a minute. I will show some 15, 16, 16 videos later on. Here's a presentation. What kind of materials they share? If you note, they creating a full page, or they posting in a Google Drive the document. This is the original work from presentation and the worksheet that they're showing to the students. And go to the Google Classroom and open up prepositional case worksheet that was posted, complete упражнение 1 и 2. If there is not enough time, choose one of the two to complete. What's happening, I'm also during this presentation teaching them to follow the time management. Sometimes they're giving assignment and waiting. It takes time. I'm showing them to go around, ask students, help them if it's needed. Be a real teacher in the classroom. Here the presentation and what they check, how they check. Next step, when they asking students questions, they raising their hand, and all materials which they are working on left with the students, or it's in the Google Classroom. And sometimes I'm learning from them a lot because they finding very interesting things, how to work and how to make the presentation and lesson actually interesting for the classmates. I would be honest with you, sometimes it's a mistakes happening. I'm mentioning this, but I'm trying not to hurt the feelings regarding the great work presenting. Reflection. In every time and it takes for us, I think, 10, 15 days, but it's not one day, like Friday. Every Friday we're doing this. In the Google Classroom, I'm creating the question, and I'm asking students to respond to the work of their classmates, of what was good, what was they suggest, and they're very honest while they writing about this. As you see, 9 students did not complete their work. It was something. And this is responses. Real one, I just took the names of the student on the work. What I observed, I'm doing this project maybe last 10 years, I'm adding a lot of things, I'm changing some approach or assignments or grammatical concepts that in the end, students sometimes tell me, oh, I remember this when I go over on essay, one of the essays with them. I remember that I did a project on that. I really now know how to implement this this concept in my writing or my speaking and etc. This is yes, I would say that a lot of English over here, but I considering this this project as a research, a great opportunity for the students to be teachers, to be in my shoes, and I have a very interesting discussions after the presentations and how they feel and what they would like to improve and suggestions to me. Thank you.
Hi. So what I am going to talk about for a few minutes is actually a final project that my colleague and I developed for our students in Russian 102. And over the last 2 years, we switched to Между нами, which you may know is an online textbook, because we felt that it really served the needs of our students well. And in terms of the instructional materials that are provided, we thought that they made for some interesting opportunities, productive opportunities for students to work together offline and to work on mini projects. And it is out of these smaller projects that that developed into, I guess, what is more accurately termed as project-based assessment, as opposed to project-based learning. And so what I was going to do today is to just talk about the final project-based assessment that we created for our students in Russian 102, how we designed it, how we did the assessments and whatnot. So first I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So, so this is essentially the final project that we developed for Russian 102, and Russian 102 is the second semester of first-year Russian. And by the end of the second semester, students have the main thing is that they have learned all of the grammatical cases in the singular, and I believe only the prepositional case in the plural at this point. But what we focused on was the final 4 chapters that we studied, and that was chapters 4 through 7 in Mejdunami. And we chose to focus on a large overriding theme that we had, that we'd focused on during the semester, and that overriding theme was travel. And so as part of their final assessment, and for their final assessment, it's group project where they work in pairs. They work in pairs that we assign. And generally during the semester, when we assign group work, we allow students to choose their partners. We like being able to give them that freedom of choice. But for these final projects, my colleague and I thought that it would actually be good to pair different types of students. So we don't have the strongest students, naturally choosing to work with each other. But what we did in putting together these pairs was to try to pair a stronger student with a student who perhaps wasn't as strong. And so, as I said, the overarching theme of the final 4 units that we looked at was travel. And throughout the semester, students worked on what I would probably call sort of low-level project-based assignments. But for this final assessment, what we asked them to do was bring together the knowledge that they attained during their work during the final four units. So what I would like to point out is that the tasks that we asked them to include in their final projects, and their final projects, we did it. We had 2 different iterations. For one, we asked them to, and these are two different semesters of second semester Russian. But for one, we asked them to do a presentation on Flipgrid. And for the second one, we decided that we would just videotape that entire class, and that students, and the reason we have the Flipgrid presentations and we do the videotaping is for the purposes of assessment. What we decided to do was to have students, after they've presented in class, we ask them to go back and assess themselves. So they have a rubric that the students and my colleague and I are all working with. And so we actually ask them to go back, assess themselves, assign themselves a grade for the project. And then we will meet with each pair. And, essentially what we'll say is, okay, what grade did you assign yourself and why? And if we decide that our assessment is in line with their assessment, we let the grade stand. But we have the right to say, no, maybe it's not quite an A. Let's look at these things in the presentation that might make it closer to an A-. Or conversely, we might say, okay, you went through, you assessed yourselves, you gave yourselves a B, but here are some things that we actually think you did really well. And we think that you might have done better than the grade that you assigned yourself. So instead of a B, we actually think that for this assessment, you should receive a B+. But that is what we have gotten into the habit of doing, is having students first assess themselves, and then we come to some agreement together with regard to the final grade. So for this particular assessment, again, the overall theme is travel, and we ask them to do a number of things in their presentations. And their presentations, you know, we say working with a partner, we said 8 to 10 minutes. Invariably, they tended to go longer, usually 10 to 12 minutes. But we asked them to perform 6 main tasks that are related to travel. The first one is doing research about the city that they are going to. And if you're familiar with Mezhunami, you know that it follows the lives of 4 American students that are studying in Petersburg, Kazan, Irkutsk, and Yaroslavl for an academic year. So we asked them to do research, first decide what city they want to travel to, and to give a rationale as to why. And in preparing for that section, we asked them to go online, look up tourist videos on YouTube, and just find out just like 3 interesting facts about each city, and decide why this is the particular city that you would want to travel to. And once they've decided that, do research, check out what the weather forecast is, and then decide what type of clothing you would need for this trip. And in performing or in preparing to do this final project, we encourage them to go back and look at the goals for each unit. And the goals that are stated are essentially the can-do statements for each unit. So we encourage them to go back and to have their work be guided by the main can-do goals for each unit. So the first one is weather, clothing, also deciding how they plan to travel. And that involves developing an itinerary. And what we have them do, or tell them they need to do, is to go online, choose an itinerary. And here they're dealing with all Russian websites, but to go online, to choose an itinerary, find out the cost of, for example, a single round trip ticket. And from their starting city to their destination city, and to be able to describe how they're going to be traveling. The third main part of this project is talking about presents and souvenirs, thinking about what types of presents and souvenirs they would bring to their friends in the city that they are going to, but what types of things they would buy, for example, their hasiaika, and for their friends in the city where they're studying, and why these presents or these souvenirs would be appropriate. Fourth, we ask them to look at attractions in the city that they are planning to go visit. So essentially find out about the major tourist attractions where you'll be going. And again, we ask them to go online and do research, looking at tourist attraction videos on YouTube, for example. The fifth aspect of it is identifying museums that they would want to go to. And imagine, that you're there with a friend, you've gone to visit, be able to tell us 3 things, 3 important things that you saw while you were there. And again, this involves research on Russian websites. And the last thing that involves travel, that's travel related, is identifying restaurants that they would want to go to while they're in their city, and identifying a restaurant, finding an actual online menu, and choosing, coming up with a list of things that they would like to eat at this particular restaurant. And so, you know, looking at this overall arching themes, we do give them some guidelines. And let me scroll down. I don't know, how do I scroll down? I don't know that I've ever done it. Oh, I just scroll down. Okay. And so the overall sort of arching instructions that we give them is they should use at least 10 imperfective and perfective verb pairs, incorporate at least 5 times a day. So that's actual time, and they know time on the hour and the half hour, I believe. And also what parts of day, so utram or utra, for example. Incorporate all of the cases that we've learned. Complex and compound sentences, using those and making sure that they use the adverbs and the adjectives that we've learned in those units as much as possible. So again, you know, we understand that there's a lot going on as it relates to the overall issue of time, but they have done sort of small formative assessments as we've worked the entire semester dealing with these themes, and we just encourage them to go back and to look to their can-do statements to make sure that they are focusing on the right things. And I know in talking with other colleagues, they're not as convinced about the way in which we choose to do the assessment. I think many of them are much more comfortable just assigning a grade, but we think it's an important exercise for students to be able to argue and to justify why they think that they should get a particular grade, to give them that opportunity to make an argument for themselves. So we weren't certain if this is one aspect of the assessment that we wanted to keep, but I think that we will. I think that we will. And so, wow, 15 minutes have gone by very quickly. I will stop there, and I welcome your comments or your questions. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Raquel, and thank you everyone who presented today. We have about 15 minutes left for questions. So I would ask you all to raise your hand if you have a question to ask, and then you can unmute yourself and you can ask this question directly. Georgi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to the presenters for very insightful presentations. I have a question to all the presenters, probably particularly to Raquel. Has anyone replaced all summative assessments, such as traditional chapter exams, with projects completely? And in that framework, if you have, how do we and do we assess language-related objectives with Pbll?
No, we absolutely have chapter-based exams or quizzes, as I call them, but we also do more sort of low stakes formative assessments. So, you know, we'll have vocabulary quizzes, right, for each unit. A formative assessment might just include in-class discussion about the theme of the unit. So we absolutely still do formative assessments. I think that those quizzes absolutely have their place in the classroom, but we just thought that this final sort of assessment would just be a creative way instead of, because this is in place of a final exam. This is their sort of final exam. So yeah, but we absolutely still have the traditional unit assessments. And I just want to say that they're given 2 full weeks. We don't just give this to them like the weekend before. They have 2 entire weeks to work on it, but they understand that this is in lieu of a final exam.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we also, Georgi, have vocabulary quizzes, and for some of the, I would say that starting this year, Pbll is taking a major part as a summative assessment, like for the units in our school, for instance. But some of the teachers, I mean, mostly like math teachers, science teachers, they do have traditional summative assessments. In language classroom, we're trying to go with Pbll, but again, depending on the course, because sometimes we need to teach students to take the Regents exams or Newell exam at the end. So that does require some non-Pbll assessments. Natasha.
Yeah.
Yes, we thank you. We are having listening comprehension exams, reading exams. I'm not so much about vocabulary. Usually it's an essay, short essays in class. Especially my project, which I presented, one of the projects that I'm doing, they are not so much on language proficiency. Yes, it's more like reviewing materials. Yes, it's a big push now in the New York City that the Department of Education that we should be fully moved to Pbll, but it's a very slow process, and I think we're still doing what we're supposed to do in terms of the other type of assessment, usual, classical.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my university is doing completely away with summative assessments in the world language classroom and trying to replace this with Pbll. So that's really what brought me to this workshop. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any more questions? Yes, Catherine.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Raquel. Maybe I missed it, but I was wondering how you make sure you get some variety in the cities that the kids do their final presentations on, or whether they're all trying to choose St. Petersburg. Do you also assign the cities that they travel to?
No, we don't assign the cities. You know, as we're moving through each unit, they've already learned a little bit about each of the cities. So, you know, which ones have a Kreml, and, you know, just sort of different fun facts, if you want to say, you know, those are included in the readings for each unit. So we encourage them strongly not just to choose St. Petersburg, for example. And, you know, if by chance they do, then we will say, well, somebody has to do Yaroslavl or Kazan, and we will assign. But generally, they will choose on their own, and we haven't had to really compel anyone to do anything. They've actually been pretty good in terms of choice.
Natalia, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm a teacher of Waldorf School in Pittsburgh. So I'm teaching classes grades from 1 to 8. And it's my first year at school, and I'm still just a mess with curriculum, with everyone, with everything. So I'm taking MGU course for myself, how to teach kids Russian as foreign language. And I'm going to make my own curriculum this summer. So I'm a bit far from Pbll right now, but I will read these links that you provided. And my question is to John and to those who know how to teach in school, not in college. So
yes, Natalia.
So John, please tell me what textbook you use and what about your curriculum? Did you do it yourself, or did you have this curriculum in school when you came there, when you started teaching?
Yeah,
and
well,
also one, excuse me,
sorry, no, go ahead.
One more question. Do you teach in Russian or in English? Because the previous teacher told me to teach in English, but now I'm taking the course from MGU, and they say try to minimize English as much as possible. Yep. So 3 questions for you.
So yes, in my district, we do have a published, standard curriculum for each level. We have Russian beginning at grade 7. It goes all the way up to grade 12. We're supposed to stay in the target language 90%, right, or more, right? That is the goal that we all try to achieve. What was your other question? Sorry, it's Friday.
About textbook.
Okay.
Because,
yeah,
also
we stopped ordering textbooks quite a few years ago. So, I mean, we still have some textbooks, that we pull this or that from. Like, for example, in my presentation, I showed that there were a couple of authentic texts from there. But the idea is that we do not want to be, tied just to a textbook. We need to be able to get, activities, authentic, texts, authentic, examples of culture, real life examples, either on the internet or, either speaking. So yeah, no, we need to provide real life examples, so, I mean, you can definitely use, textbooks and, definitely to, especially if you are, and I would be happy to help you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Natalia. I can only imagine, especially if you're tasked with coming up with an entire curriculum. I think we all here can say that that is a daunting task, and how many levels are you working with, Natalia?
From 1st grade to 8th grade.
To 8th grade.
Right now, I'm taking this from previous teacher this year, and my expectations were just too high. And then I started torturing kids with grammar. In 8th grade, they were just like looking at me. And the previous teacher just was leaving them with 3 cases, just nominative, genitive, accusative, 4 prepositional, and that's all. And right now I'm trying to give them an idea of every case, just a bit at least, and they do not speak in 8th grade. That's what is the problem, and I want them to speak at least somehow. So my pure experiment will be with 1st grade, and maybe so yeah. We need
Natalia, we can connect you. We can connect you to John and some other teachers of Russian from elementary to middle school. Yeah, so don't worry, I have your contact information. Ira, you can unmute yourself.
I know we don't have a lot of time, so I can ask the question and we can reconvene to answer the question next week at the Teachers Lounge. For all of you who have tasks where students need to go online and find information on real internet, like, to find how much the ticket costs to go somewhere or a restaurant, do you have any tricks up your sleeves from preventing students from accessing the English version of these sites? Because many of those sites have English versions. And also I can just click on Google and ask Google to translate the site into English. So anything that is,
well, I mean, one thing, just, when I give them the, in any activity, when I give them the URL, it's definitely the Russian version. And, it appears on the paper, but, it also has to be in Google Classroom. So it's posted there as well. And then, I mean, the only way is, you have to I can walk around the room and monitor what's on their iPads, or I can look to see what's on their iPad because we have something called Apple Classroom, which allows me to look at all of their screens. So I can do that as well. But I mean, I'd rather walk around the classroom than just sit there, and just, look at it. So.
And they do that in the classroom. They're not assigned to do this at home.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they can do it at home. Yes, that's, but I mean, I like exploratory things in class, Anybody
for
else
their
have
final
ideas?
project, my colleague and I came up with a list of useful websites. And so we came up with about 20. And we said, these are interesting places where you might want to start. So why don't you, look through these, and you should be able to find the information that you're looking for before you decide to move on to other sites. So hopefully if they limited themselves to those, those are all, Russian language sites. But in general, when we've sort of given them some of that information to get started with, I think they've done a good job of sticking to the Russian language sites.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I was next in the line. I'm just curious because many of PBLs involved group work, right, and collective work and pair work. So how do you assess this kind of work? And do you make students always to do like self-assessment, peer assessment, like peer review? Do you like just try to keep like at every step you just try to check every single step they make in order to make sure that everyone is contributing equally and everyone is going to get the grades in accordance with their effort and their involvement in this project?
May I? Quickly. Honestly, my group is 2 students. It's the biggest group. I am not allowed group 3 maybe, but when the 2 of them presenting, it's very clear, or presenting the project or participate. It's very clear who does what, and they both supposed to during the presentation equally present it. And this way it's much easier. And sometimes it's when they create a dialogue and they're presenting, it's not spontaneous conversation. They prepared something, but without the paper, it's very clear. One of them speaks easily, and it's just a different grades for between them.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Yes, we were just saying in the chat that what is it, a summative assessment finally or not? But I would say that group work or individual work can be sometimes formative assessment, like working as a group, or sometimes individual can be formative assessment too. So depending on the activity that we are grading. And yes, students can work in the group. And you then probably, like we have option in our school, we have habits of success, for instance. So 10% for engagement, 10% for responsibility. So this group work can be graded simply as a responsibility point, like working together, because this year that was just quite unusual after pandemic. I used to work independently. I don't want to be like, doing the group project, not possible to me. So sometimes, like in my class, for instance, students simply don't know how many points each activity is. So everyone is doing what they need to do and trying to reach the goal. And at the end, they will see.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. And just remember, this is not the end of our conversation. This is only the beginning. And we would like to invite everyone to our Teachers Lounge next Friday at the same time, 5 o'clock. And we will continue our discussion. So bring your ideas, bring your projects to share. So this will be like already like a collective brainstorming. And also one of the suggestions was also to think of some ideas for projects that are relevant to the current situation, right? How can we adjust our language instructions? How can we adjust the topics, the ideas for our projects based on geopolitical situation in the world? So something that may be also useful to discuss next Friday, and bring more questions, of course. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Katya, for wonderful presentations. And thank you, the whole webinar committee, for organizing it.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you to the
to-
audience.
Thank you very much to the
Thank you, everyone.
presenters. I'm gonna stop.
Thank you